Good evening, and thank you for joining us on Public Affairs Public Access. I am Jenard Jenkins, Press Secretary of the Harris County Democratic Party. On behalf of Party Chair Lane Lewis, I bid you greetings and welcome you to our discussion tonight. Like money, politics never sleeps, especially here in Texas, as this year we face the most pivotal midterm election in 2 decades. In one single vote this November, this state can transform from deep red to royal blue, ushering a new era of opportunity for women, Latinos, students, the middle class, and everyone who calls this beloved state home. Or Texas could accept the status quo, merely changing and shifting faces, but embracing the same policy and philosophy. In one single vote, one single election, the usually dormant midterm electorate could awaken and not just change this state, but an entire nation along with it. We welcome you to call in and join our discussion tonight because I brought you an all-star panel as I promised when Harris County first started doing Public Affairs Public Access. Joining me tonight, I have Mr. Navid Zanjani. He is the former executive director of the Harris County Democratic Party. He is the president of the Harris County Young Democrats, and he is also the special projects manager for Councilor Robert Gallegos of District I. Thank you, Navid, for being here. I also have Mr. Egberto Willies. He is president of the Kingwood Area Democrats. He is host of radio show Politics Done Right on KPFT 90.1, and he's also an award-winning blogger. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to have some fun.
Absolutely.
Navid, we wake up November 5th, 2014, and Wendy Davis was elected governor the night before. Tell me how that happened.
Well, number one, what we're going to have is new voters coming in and engaging in the process. I think that's one of the key things that we need to do from here on out, and we have been doing that. You see that with Battleground Texas. You see with the Wendy Davis campaign. You have other campaigns that are also involved in their districts. And one of the key things that we see all over the state is every single county is energized. They have their own candidates that they're running, and from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket, we see every single individual putting themselves in the moment to get elected, in the moment to do the right thing for their county and their state.
Absolutely. So you're looking at a grassroots movement that's awakened across the state of Texas. Do you see anything in terms of, our strength in the particular counties and particular areas of the state of Texas that would give Senator Davis,
Yes.
the governor's mansion?
I think it's going to be the 5 biggest counties: Tarrant County, Harris County, Dallas County, Bexar County. These are the counties where she's actually going to run up the numbers. I think a big impact is actually going to be us mobilizing once and for all the Latino vote. Once we get that Latino vote engaged, and I think there are good reasons to believe that it's actually going to get engaged, not only because of the presence of Leticia Van de Putte, but because the demographics is actually, not only that it has changed, but it has left people noticing that, yes, we can actually make a difference. I tell you one other thing that's going to make an important difference that nobody wants to talk about here in Texas, and that is the silent thing that's happening with the Affordable Care Act. It has a disproportionate effect on Latino communities and other minority communities, and why that is going to make a difference is specifically because Rick Perry has left 1 million Texans uninsured. I believe whether the candidates do it themselves or the grassroots bring it out, meaning whether it be bloggers or otherwise, bring that to the table and let these people realize that there is a specific interest that you have in getting the right people elected into office. That's when it occurs, because people are going to feel from within that there's a reason for them to go out there and vote.
You're absolutely right. And Navid, one of the things that's interesting is that when Governor Perry announced last year that he wasn't going to be running for office, there was actually excitement on both sides.
Yeah.
Both Democrats and Republicans were excited about it. The only downside to that is that he would have been vulnerable in 2014. Everybody knows that.
Right.
So now the Republicans have went and they have chosen as their candidate Attorney General Greg Abbott. So given that he's been in office for as long as he has. Do you think that the state of Texas, the everyday citizen, knows Attorney General Abbott?
I think they don't. I think, to be honest with you, it comes down to nobody knows who these candidates are, right? At the end of the day, people were not involved, right? And so it's basically engagement of these individuals that are new voters, newly registered voters, on educating on who these people and these individuals are. I'll give you a good example. You have Republican women or independent, in fact, Republican women, and then separate that with independent women. You have a large portion of independent women who did not previously vote on an ongoing basis that say they're going to vote this time for Wendy Davis and Leticia Van de Putte. Like on the last, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, we had Senator Leticia Van de Putte on CNN, yes, right, giving her some national props and being able to talk about her story. And that story is what brings people together. It's basic community organizing. What is my story? And that's what she shared. And going forward with that, we have Republican women who are deciding these individuals are not fighting, or this party is not fighting for my rights. So who will? And they're looking to people like Senator Wendy Davis, Senator Leticia Van de Putte, and then we have other women in our district that are in our county, for example, in Harris County, that are running. Kim Ogg, right?
We
have Judith Snively, who's running for district clerk. We have Ann Harris Bennett, who's running for county clerk. So these individuals, just these three women, are running a large portion of our county race or county-wide race. Them as a trio can do a lot to educate individuals. In fact, we had an endorsement meeting this past actually February, and in that endorsement meeting, we fell in love with Kim Ogg. I mean, it was like unanimous in the room. She had put together all the points that are important for this county and specifically for young individuals, and what the court systems are able to do, how we're going to let young people experience what government does to help people in their county, instead of closing the door behind and saying you're not allowed to come in.
Exactly.
So that's what these individuals are doing, and it's funny enough, it's women who are standing up to run for these offices.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I was interested in looking at when I was going over, my daily briefings for what we were prepared to say or put out for the party, is the number of websites that were picking up this story that somehow, some way, that Wendy Davis was trailing Greg Abbott in polling amongst women.
Right.
But then you take a closer look at it, and what it is it's a favorable versus unfavorable.
Right.
And the numbers were kind of skewed to make it look as if she was trailing Abbott in the polling. What do you think about that? We know that the women are going to make the difference in this vote, and obviously things like that are things that try to change the mind of women and say, hey, maybe Greg Abbott is stronger, with women than he is. I mean, are women in play? Or
the interesting thing is that people don't know Wendy Davis. We are block walking in Humble, in Kingwood, and one of our members, Tony Morales, he went out into the community and he said, are you going to vote for Wendy Davis? The person asked, who is Wendy Davis?
Wow.
So people look at that as a negative. I look at that as a positive. I look at that as we have 6 months in which to make people aware that there's a viable candidate out there. But not only that, if you take a look at Wendy Davis's story, we've written about that, all of us that are bloggers or whatever, we've written stories about her where we actually highlight the type of life that she's had, where she's been from, where, they've tried to disparage that for some time. Yes. But the thing about it is that there are enough of us out there that are relaying the story otherwise. And additional to that, it's great to actually see that Wendy didn't allow that to be her backstop. She actually went on the offensive in such a manner that Greg Abbott, is now the one on the defensive. Every single day, her operation is so perfect that it sends out to all the bloggers, it sends out to all the people in the media, the story of the day and what's occurring within within the campaigns. And she's showing how it's done. Another person that we should be talking about, Mike Collier, who's running for the comptroller. And what Mike Collier is doing is he's already on the attack. He has ads all over the TV right now, putting the position of Hager. He's putting Hager's position on sales tax and all these other issues in play. So whereas a lot of people may think Democrats are at a disadvantage, I love to see how they're running right now, because they're running from a position of strength as opposed to kowtowing as they did before.
Right, because how having a blank slate is a positive
Exactly.
and a negative. And like when you're trying to put, wording on that blank slate and you're talking about somebody who they think that they know in Attorney General Abbott, then they come out and they're surprised that he's, against women receiving the same wages as men, even though in the state of Texas, women only get 70 cents per every dollar that a man gets. He's against pre-kindergarten for select students, I mean, so it's important to shine a light not only on your candidate and say this is who we have, but it's also important to say, hey, listen, you think this guy because he's been in office for so long, but let me take a look and see, really what this guy stands for and is about. Do you think that he's just a continuation of Perry?
I think he is. And in the end of the day, it's the people that are behind him, right? It's the same people. Right, and so at the what you're looking at is a purely continuation of the regime that they have in place, right? And it is a regime, right? And so what we have coming along is we have fresh blood, we have new people. They're excited, they want to be involved, and hopefully we can see what kind of organization or government that we can put together moving forward. And that's one of the key things to remember is we have a constitution that we put together as a state, and how we abide by that and move forward as a governor and lieutenant governor is what makes our state so wonderful, right? And how do we move those pieces along? Right now we have people who are not insured in the state of Texas right now, right? And the Affordable Care Act is one of the biggest issues that this past governor has not worked on at all. And so how we're going to move that piece forward is going to be very important.
I want to add to that, because I think the Affordable Care Act is something that's not spoken enough about. We can actually show, if we were to do correctly, that not accepting the Affordable Care Act is actually shows poor planning, and it also shows that from a budgetary standpoint that we're losers. Specifically, we've already all paid for the Affordable Care Act in Texas. So the million of uninsured people are actually given the monies that we've already collected in taxes is already paid for these people that are uninsured. So Rick Perry and the Republicans in this state have chosen not to pay what has already been paid. But that said, it is interesting because they are willing, for ideological reason, to have 3,000 Texans die every year for lack of coverage. From a party that attempts to make the Democratic Party seem as if a less than moral party. It's ironic that their stance on the Affordable Care Act is so immoral, because in effect it is not only, we speak about it causing 3,000 deaths. What we don't speak about is all the illnesses that don't cause death, but that people are going to be with because of the lack of coverage.
Right. It's still going to impact your life, whether it ultimately ends up with terminating that life or not.
Right.
It is still going to impact your life. It's interesting when you bring up the point about, them being in charge of the state's budget, because we have on the Republican side, and obviously they have not settled who their lieutenant governor candidate is going to be until the May 27th runoff, but you have a choice between Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst and you also have Dan Patrick, who has had issues in his own personal finances, and now he wants to try to run the state's finances. Very interesting.
Yes.
But as we've spoken about, you have Senator Van de Putte, and she's going to be contending against one of the two who break out of that race. Is this another one of those Tea Party versus established Republican candidate things? And if so, who do you think is going to win?
I believe it is. And history is showing in Harris County, overall, we have a very and we're talking specifically in Harris County, for example, we have a very, we vote more Democratic in this county.
Absolutely.
And but statewide, I'm a little more worried that we have the Tea Party pulling through a little more, because the rhetoric back and forth is what's gonna assassinate the whole entire conversation. And so it's gonna take a while for all that to pan out in the next 2 months, but it has to be something so vulnerable that's gonna happen within this 2 months that's gonna help Dewhurst pull through.
Right, because it's one of those things. I mean, I'm sure he's experiencing deja vu, because he did this with Ted Cruz.
Right.
He lost that one,
Yes,
and now he has another Tea Party guy, who's going against him, and it's to the benefit of the Democratic Party, obviously, to have a fractured Republican Party, but at the same time, what happens when those Tea Party candidates get elected? Then we all suffer because of it.
Yes.
So on the other side, you have, great qualified, candidates that we put up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just a matter of people getting over the D in front of our candidate's name or behind our candidate's name, rather than it being eggs to apples? I mean,
Yes, it is. I mean, we have to take back what D means, because what we did is we've allowed somebody else to define what a Democrat is. A Democrat is a free spender. A Democrat is a freeloader. A Democrat is somebody who doesn't look like the average American. All of that is false. And what we have to do is we have to take back the party, but you don't take it back by trying not to be a Democrat. You take it back by being what a Democrat is. Wasn't it great when you came and looked at what President Johnson did, when the president came and spoke about all the things that President Johnson effected? A Southern president that wasn't necessarily the most liberal thinking person, that actually accomplished that much, the amount that he accomplished. So I think, yes, a lot of people have these. What I do in a lot of the writings that I do is try to reclaim several words. I'm not saying, I try to reclaim the word liberal, I try to reclaim the word Democrat, and all these things, because these are where all good things that have occurred in this country had come from. When we look at the women's movement, when we look at the civil rights movement, it is from that vantage point that it came from. And we have to reclaim that, and not only reclaim it, but we have to be steadfast in the way that we talk to other people, including Republicans, not to try to disparage them or something like that, but to let them understand that, hey, it is okay to be a Democrat.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you say that, it's about reclaiming the name, because we've seen in the past with candidates here in Harris County, and now we're seeing it again statewide, that sometimes your very name can help you and your name can actually hurt you. Sometimes if your name sounds a certain way, it can fool a group of people into believing that, this is a candidate that I should vote for. I'm going to read a statement to you guys, and I want to get your impressions on this. This is unprecedented, really, from the state party, but it says, this candidate for U.S. Senate, but do not be fooled. Ms. Rogers is a member of the LaRouche movement, which is a political cult with a history of violent rhetoric. And it's an organization focused on impeaching the president. Again, this is the Democratic candidate. This is the candidate that believes that global warming is a hoax, that the U.S. economy is secretly being controlled by London, and has advocated for the colonization of Mars. They put out a very strong statement saying, do not vote for Keisha Rogers. The candidacy is an insult to our party, president, state, democratic values, and all the work you are doing to move the party forward. Navid, would they come that strong against a person whose name is on the ballot if they did not fully want to get the message out to not vote for this person? That's as hard-hitting as you can get.
I mean,
that is tough.
But she has a history of that.
Right.
So we have a history in Fort Bend County when she ran for Pete Olson's seat multiple times. So it's for me, I feel it's the same letter. It's been basically taken to the state level now.
Yes.
And so and her name, in a sense, it's more or less the how someone poses themselves and how they present themselves, and she's done a very successful job in doing that in order to basically trick people to, hey, I'm a Democrat, but what do you mean? and the background is she has a
Right.
totally different party behind her and different agenda. And so what is the question that comes to play is what exactly is a Democrat, right?
Right.
A Democrat is someone who believes in the platform that we have set in place on a state level and a national level, and agrees to those sets or those points that we've made of who our nominee for president are. And so for her to run as a Democrat is disingenuous to that point, right? So what she's doing is deterring or messing the name up of what Democrats are. And I agree with that statement, to be honest with you. So
Definitely. I mean,
I agree with the statement as
definitely
well. Absolutely.
We're three guys with unusual names, and we'll
Right.
add a fourth by just saying David Alamil. Okay, David Alamil.
And-
Remember that name when you're looking
Yeah,
at US
and it-
Senate.
and
Just
it-
remember the name. I'm
and
not
it's interesting.
endorsing anyone, but I'm
Yeah.
saying remember the
David
name.
Alamil, yeah. And that has always been my concern with the race, the names, because when you have a low information voters, and I don't mean that to be derogatory. What I mean that to be is when you have voters that are not engaged, the only things that they can use as a point of reference is a name. So is a Latino voting for a Rodriguez wrong because they see a Rodriguez in the name? No, it's not. What it means is that the Latino seeing a Rodriguez, all things being equal, will say Rodriguez. Somebody with a name like Keisha in, let's say, some inner city neighborhoods with certain types of names, absent knowing the whole picture, the only frame of reference that they have is that name. It's not good or bad. It's just the way it is. And that's a danger of certain types of races. And when we have somebody with a name like Alamil in Texas and Akeisha Rogers in
Yes.
Texas,
You have
it
people
creates a problem
Right.
that we have to be frank about.
Right.
Because
Because you're going to have people that run from Alamil and toward Rogers.
Exactly.
But you're really not looking at the candidates.
You're
in
not
the
looking
race.
at the candidates
Yeah, you
itself. And again, it's not that these people are ill-behaved for doing that. What it really is that they because they're so uninformed on both candidates, their frame of reference is what's closer to what they know.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's why it is our job of getting the information out to ensure that Alamil is understood to be who Alamil is.
Right. And one of the things that Senator Van der Putte always says is that Texas isn't a red state. Texas is a non-voting state.
Exactly.
So we beat this drum every 2 years, and we tell them it's important to know these candidates, get out and vote. It's important to know that these candidates get out and vote. Do you think that having the slate of candidates that we have on the Democratic side versus the candidates that are on the Republican side will slightly tilt that 7% midterm electorate that usually comes out in the state of Texas, that pushes it up? Because as you know, being the political expert that you are, you know that if you move that needle and you add just 3% more of the electorate, then these races are competitive. If you add 5%, then
We win.
this is a blue state.
Yes.
So is there anything? Is it going to be the candidates? Is it the message? What's going to be the difference in 2014?
I think it's campaign strategy. So that's what we have great candidates, but we don't have the numbers per se yet, right? And so what that comes down to is, and we have to think of this state as a battleground state, right? And that's why we have the organization of Battleground Texas, right? So in a battleground state, and I've worked in battleground states, you always have a campus program. We have close to 50 plus universities and colleges here in the state of Texas, but nobody has set up a serious campus program. And what that means, you have an organizer at every single campus going out there and talking to the fraternities, sororities, clubs, and students and classrooms. And why? And you ask why is this important? Well, universities have always been the bed rest for new things to come up, new apps, new trends. Well, this is an easy way to get your word out. By having these organizers there on the campus, you create a buzz, right? Who are these people that are coming to different campuses? Who are these people that are meeting with these people or these students and, the breezeways or, the university centers? That talk back and forth with me, hey, did you see that individual was running for this office? Yeah, I did. When they go home, right, over the summer or when they're on a break, talks of politics usually happen at dinner, right? So honey, what do you think about this and this and this? And, back and forth, son or daughter is going to say, so yeah, I've actually had this individual come by our campus, or this person come by our campus and is talking about, student tuition, right? That's one of the key things that us as Democrats talk about is education is very important, but why do we have to have five-figure, six-figure debts for education? That's one of the things that we're not talking about, is to be on those campuses. As you do build up those campuses, you spread into the neighborhoods that are around the campuses. So you already have organizations that are easy to mobilize, to move those people out. And when a young person comes to your door and knocks on that door and says, hey, I want you to vote for someone that I really believe in, and you tell that story and your personal story to it, the person at that door will say, you know what, I will vote for that person.
Absolutely.
And that's what now, currently, I haven't seen a plan yet for a campus program.
Right. And it's interesting is that, we spend millions of dollars on getting our message out. And, as you know, you're a former head of the communications group, and, you're in radio. So you obviously know that the most effective form of communication is face-to-face.
Absolutely.
And there's no more greater influence on a person's vote than somebody who is speaking to them that they actually know. So all the money that's being spent, at the top, really it's a conversation,
Right.
between your friends and your neighbors that makes all the difference. And you think that that's going to be, ramped up this year?
I don't think it's going to happen from the top. Okay, as an example, let's use our community in Kingwood. We have a wonderful Kingwood area Democrat group, and the reason why it is so wonderful is that the group is almost self-operated. In other words, people decide that something needs to get done, and they do it. Somebody makes a call, somebody says we're going to go block walking, we do it. Somebody decides that we need to start making calls, we do it. We have leaders in the group that are specific to voter registration, they do it. The Kingwood area Democrats, they go out there and they do things irrespective of some directive coming from the party. We love to have directives coming from the party, but we think of it as something that we want to do from the grassroots and get the people engaged. A lot of times in our part of town, because of where we are, Kingwood is generally not thought of as a very democratic area. But we generally don't accept that because we think independents are just Democrats in the wait-in.
Yes.
Okay? We think disaffected Republicans are just Democrats in the wait-in. So we speak to everybody, and we go out there and we talk to people. And if you see the way the group operates, that is what we, and it's not only our group. We see groups like the Maryland groups and the Young Democrat groups that had just had their function in San Antonio, going out there and do this. So I think it's going to happen not from the top down, but you're going to see it, people that are just tired of losing and tired of, not necessarily having things done, going ahead and getting it done going forward.
So what we're talking about is a fundamental change in Texas that happens on an individual level. And one of the things that, the term that we hear about, I think I used it earlier tonight in terms of turning the Texas blue. Turning the state blue. You hear about that all the time. Now, that could mean one of two things. That could mean that somehow, some way we have a state candidate who rises and, breaks this 20-year drought that we've been in. That could also mean that just simply a presidential candidate can come into the state of Texas and it's competitive.
Right.
So for you individually, and I want to hear from both of you, what does turning Texas blue mean? Are we blue if State Senator Davis wins? Are we blue if in 2016 Texas is competitive? What does it mean for Texas to turn blue to each one of you?
I think Texas's values are blue. We are a blue, you have to think it first. You have to think when you speak to your neighbor, when you speak to what the things are that they want, this is a blue state. We can follow, well, they vote for Dewhurst or they vote for these other people. That doesn't matter because they vote for these people on false premises. So what we have to do as Democrats, it's make the case to them. But we have to do it, I think, and my humble opinion, we have to do it twofold. We have to first show why they are but chameleons and at the same time put forth our message. And I think that's where we fail. So what I honestly believe, we've always, remember, Texas was always a blue state.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
It was always a blue state.
Yes.
And that's because of the values that it has. I mean, the values of Texas is that of the Democratic platform. There are some wedge issues that people concentrate on to make differences that are minor in the whole picture. And that's what we have to get away from, I believe.
Right. What do you think? 2016, you think that if a Democratic candidate comes in, and we have to remember, and you're a veteran of the, Obama campaign in both 08 and also in 12. So you know that when, the primary came here and we did the Texas two-step, I mean, Senator Clinton at the time and Senator Obama at the time galvanized the state and energized us in a way that we had never seen before. And there's a strong possibility that one of the two, and obviously since the president is term limited, he's not the one of them could be back in this state in 2016 seeking the presidential nomination of the Democratic Party again, and possibly that November seeking the White House. Looking at 2016, speaking strictly here in the state of Texas, is there any national candidate that you see that could come into Texas and automatically make it competitive?
So going back to the first question, what will define Texas as being blue?
Right.
I think it's basically going to come down to having a Democratic governor, period.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, period.
So regardless of what anybody says, regardless of how any of the other races go, if we have on November the 5th a Governor Wendy Davis, you consider that to be blue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Off the bat.
Tell me why.
I like that.
And the reason why I say that is because then the policies, then the government of the state of Texas becomes a Democratic state. It becomes a blue state. Now, if we don't garner that position in 16, we go in and the state goes blue for a presidential candidate, we're still not a blue state until we have a governor that is Democratic.
That's an excellent perspective. You agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So both of you are of the opinion that we have to win a statewide office here, regardless of what happens with regard to presidential politics.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I agree wholeheartedly.
That's very interesting. Okay. What happens under the scenario that we win Attorney General? Let's just say that somehow, some way, we get Sam Houston elected to the Attorney General's office here in the state of Texas. We're purple.
We're purple.
Right.
So it's just a matter of winning one or two statewide offices, and that is what's going to define us as a purple or blue state at that point.
If we get somebody in the in the statewide office, we're purple, because it means that we had crossover votes, right?
Correct.
Right.
That's what it means. So I mean, and I think there's a distinct possibility that that's going to happen this year. The governorship, I don't know, Navid. I think we can if we play our cards right for this year, but we just have to play our cards right, as Navid mentioned, what it's going to take.
Absolutely. And again, going back to the point that there's so many small, minute points that are different, and the Republican Party just blows those up. Right? But at the end of the day, I would say Democrats here in the state of Texas are very fiscally conservative. We're very libertarian when it comes to, like, whatever happens in your house. We're liberal. Whatever happens in your house or whatever's happening in your house, that's your business. So I can sit down with, fellow young individuals who's of another party affiliation, but I would say about 90% of whatever we probably have 90% of our beliefs are the same. And it might be just little small things that are just a little more different. One person says, well, government should be involved in the insurance or this and that. But then the counter is like, well, who's going to regulate, individuals that don't have insurance, and how we can put them into a system. And so those are small, very small conversations, but 90% we're the same. Right? And then there's a saying that a Texas Democrat is the same thing as a New York Republican, too. So it's that discussion as well, too. But at the end of the day, it's what makes this state a purple state will be, if we get like a mid-level statewide position, but fully to be a blue state, we have to win the governorship.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
So looking at that, I mean, if we're talking about, Texas turning blue with regard to getting the governorship, obviously that would create a great deal of influence on how the state is run, on how politics is viewed in this state, and it could have a trickle-down effect. I mean, you win the governorship, then obviously it could, affect mayors, it can affect Congress, it can affect the legislature, not Congress, it can affect the legislature, which is really, really, really something that needs to be completely and totally, changed here in the state of Texas with regard to the numbers, because we are dwarfed in the state legislature. And if you have that, then you really don't have the voice that you would have to have in the state for the Democratic voice, because you're completely outnumbered. I mean, basically we kind of, you could say that we kind of fill chairs in the State House, and we would actually need to take a few more of those seats. But given that, to the other side, if you view a competitive presidential election in the state of Texas to mean that we are purple or to mean that we have turned blue, is there a candidate out there on the Democratic side that could make this state competitive?
Wow, I mean, I have some, you're talking on the national, I have some very mixed feelings, okay? My heart is with Hillary Clinton because of what she went through with President Obama and how she's worked hard, and you almost feel like she has earned the right to have the presidency. But the populist that I am, the middle class centric warrior that I want to be, has, I'm really taken aback by Elizabeth Warren.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Okay. Now, I'll challenge you on that point. Okay. Now, you said that, your heart is with Hillary, because this sounded like 2008 to me. So you're saying that it's possible that we could have a virtually, to some degree, unknown but Democratic superstar candidate in the Senate challenge Hillary Clinton again and make her second run at the presidency not the expected outcome.
Well, look at what's happening right now.
Okay.
We have Elizabeth Warren on a book tour. We have Elizabeth Warren doing the rounds on TV. We have Elizabeth Warren saying she is not running. She never said, I will not run.
Right.
She says, I am not running.
Syntax.
Okay, so I wrote a blog on that yesterday. And the thing about it is this. My biggest concern, like I said, I love Hillary. I think Hillary is probably likely the most competent person overall because of her international experience, because of all these issues.
Democratic side and Republican side.
Right.
Yeah, there's nobody more
qualified.
There's
nobody more qualified than that. My concern with all these candidates is I want somebody to come out with policies that are going to be really looking at the middle class from the financial sector and how that has affected the middle class. There are a lot of things I don't see within neither traditional Democrats or traditional Republicans that concerns me. I think Hillary is going to make the case, however, when she starts to run, to come to the aisle and say, well, look, I am going to be that. I think I want her to come and do that sort of convincing, because I really don't want a coronation of a Democratic candidate, because I think that opens the door for triangulation from the other side. Okay. And that's my biggest concern. And I wrote a piece for Daily Kos that people really sliced me to pieces for, and that was, are you guys ready for Rand Paul as president?
Wow.
And there's a whole thing of triangulation that I showed and it actually has a lot to do with what Navid was talking about with young people and a libertarian strand that's going through young people right now.
So they think that Rand Paul is viable?
Let me tell you, people laugh when I say it, but this country has done things like that before. So I don't think Rand Paul is as unviable as people believe he is.
Okay, so let's way ahead on this one, but let's just go ahead. We've got former Secretary of State Clinton versus Rand Paul, Senator Paul. Or we have Senator Elizabeth Warren versus Rand Paul.
I think point was made regarding there's a libertarian strain that's going through youth right now, and I can actually put some facts to that. Right now we have and I'll answer your question, but there's
No. I want to hear this.
There's an event that's coming up we're doing next week on Wednesday, which we have Kinky Friedman coming out. Progressive gentleman. He endorsed Mitt Romney the last election and previously endorsed President Obama. So he basically goes back and forth, but he's a progressive, right? We put the event up online, and we so far in a little over 24 hours have 70 people coming out to the event.
Wow.
And the reason why is the issue, and one of the key issues that's really honing is the cannabis issue right now that he's talking about. That is one of the key issues for young individuals that's happening, is because of the illegal stance that we've made cannabis be, and to re-legalize it again is going to take away a lot of the problems that has happened with young people. Specifically, you get a felony, guess what? You're 18 years old, you got a felony, you can't get student loans anymore. So you now have no future ahead of you. You either end up in jail for a couple of years or a couple months. You come out, you're 21, 20. These are problems that we have not tackled. In fact, I don't think on a national level that we don't even see any viable candidates talking about these, except for Elizabeth Warren has talked a little bit about that, right? And so now going back, these are actually, we have libertarians who are openly on their Facebook page I've been looking at, are going to come out to the Democratic Party headquarters to watch Kinky Friedman speak. So there's a crossover there that's happening. Now, with Rand Paul running, right, those are the same individuals that are supporting Rand Paul. And they see a viability. If he can come to the center, there is a very good reason for young individuals who are going to vote for him.
Really?
Now, if we don't have a very energizing individual that's going to stand up for young people, because don't forget, the middle class right now is heavily young people, right? And an article came out that we're no longer the richest middle class in the world. We got beat up by Canada.
And how much we love that.
Yeah. So if this is happening and our middle class is basically being diminished, we have young individuals who are not able to, this is 40 and under, are not able to have opportunities that they had before. But you need an individual who's going to give opportunity.
Right.
And currently right now, the only person that's talking about opportunity is Rand Paul.
I want to expand on the Rand Paul issue a little bit, because this is what people don't understand. Rand Paul went to Howard University. Rand Paul went to UC Davis, I believe. Rand Paul went to all these. First, he's going to youth. He's going to minority communities, not to win these communities. We have to remember something that's different between Democrats and Republicans. Hardcore Republicans vote as a bloc. So that is almost a locked up vote. All Rand Paul has to do, and this is the premise that I actually wrote up. All Rand Paul has to do is convince, and what has he done? When he talks to the minority community, he talks about changing the prison system. When he talks to, and the way that minorities are treated within the prison system. When he goes to young people, he brings up the cannabis issue. When he goes, and so he's trying, when I speak about triangulating whoever the Democrats bring up, I'm talking about these issues. He doesn't need to get 25% of the minority vote. Give me a little bit of that. Give me a little bit of all these different sectors of the groups that can be considered libertarian, because I have the Republican vote locked up.
Okay, I have to challenge you guys on this point. Okay, we all know from being in this business that there are a lot of times when, we have candidates on the left that are forced farther to the left than they probably are for the sake of winning the primary, certainly, and in some cases the general. And certainly we have seen in this country a battle between a more moderate Republican and a more far right-wing Republican. Now, we're living in a time right now to where even the most moderate, sensible, make sense Republican cannot get his own party's nomination. So do you think that when we're speaking about Senator Paul, that it's even possible for him to maintain his appeal to the other side, libertarians, to young people, to, siphoning off some minority voters, or, anything that will increase his numbers on the other side, but survive a Republican primary? He's going to be forced to the right. I mean, he's not going to be able to be as moderate and as appealing.
I think he's already earned his right-wing bona fides. That's the thing that worries me about him. In other words, I kind of have the feeling like once you've gotten your Tea Party card, you don't. I mean, we have one example of I don't remember who it is that. And what Rand Paul is doing is making sure he doesn't play the same card as Rubio in Florida.
Right.
Okay. He's not making a mistake. Some examples that came out today or yesterday, when David Corn found out that he had a whole lot of disparaging speeches that he made against Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Rand Paul did.
Right.
And what did he do? He didn't come back and say, I didn't really mean it. He came back and said, I love Reagan's tax cuts. But he didn't come back and said, I hit Reagan for overspending. I hit Reagan. So when I watch the way he actually talks, given that he's already earned that bona fides and know not to make the mistake that Rubio has made, let me just say, I'm not saying it is so, it just concerns me. And I've seen worse things happen. And I think the worst thing we could do as Democrats is to think that, well, Rand Paul is some sort of a kook or all these other guys or some, and then we let our guards down because we're just steadfast that Hillary has it done and she doesn't as Navid said, if she doesn't come out there and excite young people and give a reason for young people to come out there and vote, and then you have a young Rand Paul saying, I'm going to do this, he's not going to get the majority vote. We know that. But we have to be careful that we don't get triangulated for being so sure of,
Correct.
that this person can't lose.
Make a great point.
Yeah, and the same point is he came out and saying recently he supports President Carter, on some of the things he did, right? And so he's basically playing it where he's going to talk about some of the things that Democrats have done in the past, right? And so you make yourself a middle candidate. And right now, we don't have a middle candidate as of yet, or someone moving into that. We don't even have individuals except for, obviously Elizabeth Warren is out there talking about young people and energizing them, but we need to see more in a sense of being open, having open conversations. And that's some of the things that we are lacking right now. And bear in mind, let's go back to 08, 06, and 07, where the president was talking about, he's very open about it. Like he said, the Iraq war is wrong, right? And now it's, we're now years ahead and, we're out of that war. But at the end of the day, there's still a conversation as it was wrong, but there was reasons why we went in there, right? So it's about being candid. And that's what right now Rand Paul's doing, is right now being candid about that. Elizabeth Warren is doing the same thing too. But I think what we need is we need to not focus ourselves on one candidate yet.
That's the scary thing.
Because if we do, then we put all our chips in one pot and we're likely to miss out on opportunities, right? And so, and also one of the key things that we're also missing out on all of this is then we don't create a conversation. We just anointed someone saying, this is it, this is who you're going to get. And yes, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has done a lot for the country, but there was also along the way, there's a lot of other mistakes that were made along the way. What finger is going to be pointed on and saying you did something wrong here, did something wrong here? So that's why a fresh perspective. That's why the president ran, right? He was so new to it that he didn't have those barriers or that luggage to take around with him. And so that's one of the things that we need to be very careful with and have very good candidates run on the Democratic side on a national level. We need to have a conversation before we anoint someone and say.
See, this is interesting because this is, getting some type of forecast on the storm that may be coming, because you two gentlemen are on the ground, Kingwood, and certainly, with the city council's office and certainly Harris County Young Democrats. So you guys, are around, and on the ground all the time. So what I'm getting from the two of you is that it seems to me that while nationally there is another inevitability being set up, with this is going to be a Clinton nomination, it's a slam dunk that she did not expect in 2008. It seems like there may be something stirring on the ground again to where there is no inevitability for her candidacy, and people will take a look at, candidates that they would never look at before.
crystal ball did a little thing where she says she loves Hillary. Hillary, please don't run. I'm not saying that, but I'm just putting that out there and saying, if you take a look at the prose that she wrote, okay, and in effect, she wrote a prose that could be taken up by Rand Paul that says, are you sure this is what you want, or do you want to try this? And I don't want to go into the prose right now because we don't have enough time to give it the kind of coverage that it deserves. But
you're coming back, so you, both of you are coming back, so we'll get a chance to get to it.
Yeah, but yeah, we have to, you know, she asks a lot of questions, and the thing that I think we have to do as Democrats is try not to, like I said, we want to do right by our candidates, but we also don't want to anoint them for the mere fact that it could hurt us in the long run. And whereas Hillary's base is that same base that really wanted her in 2008, that's 8 years in the past, and since that 8 years, 10-year-olds are now of voting age.
Make a really good point.
10-year-olds are now of voting age, and the people that they see talking about their student loans, about going to school at a good price, I haven't heard Hillary bring up those points yet. I know she will, but she has not yet. Elizabeth Warren wrote a book on it. Elizabeth Warren is doing the tour on it. Elizabeth Warren has the videos out there. I mean, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Daily Motion, and you can see Elizabeth all over the place with a middle-class centric populist message. And then you see a Rand Paul out there, which is the only Republican that's given a populist message.
Is there any inroads that can be made by Vice President Biden? I mean, can he walk that line between establishment and also man of the people?
I love the man. I love the man. I tell you.
Is it possible that he could give you? I'm you know, Uncle Joe, and I'm also
I love Uncle
VP
Joe.
with 30 years experience in the Senate. And
Uncle Joe, 8 years more on Uncle Joe, who is how many years old right now?
72, I believe.
And so that's another issue that comes up too, because as Democrats, we said McCain was too old.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're playing the same. And Senator Clinton is in that same boat.
Yeah.
Is in that same boat too. She's about 70.
Yeah.
So I think the viability of age is very important as well.
Right.
And so how long? Because it's going to be if we're going to want to run a candidate, it's going to be 8 years.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, I want someone who's going to be able to stay up 24 hours. Stay up. I'm going to be honest.
Right.
Like, and we need
Right now, Joe Biden somewhere crying over there.
I mean, we need to be able to have someone who's going to have that vigor and who's going to be able to make decisions on the fly after being up flying around the world for 48 hours and to make those decisions. So that's why it's important to have young presidents or middle-aged presidents. So therefore, you look at where look at every single president and where they were when they started and where they ended up. If we have these individuals that are running, that we're vying to run right now, where are they going to end up, right?
They're going to be fossilized by the time they leave.
I mean, I like that. But at the end of the day, we have to look at where they're going to be in 8 years, right? And that's where the president was. We saw what he made, what he did, and decisions that he made in regards to like healthcare. That was a fight that was almost 7 years, 60 some odd years,
and it's still going on.
And we solved it to an extent, and it's being solved with the program that we have in place. So that was his fight. I mean, David Axelrod walked away. He was like, "All right, great, we got the job done, and we're going." And then he was like, "Well, how about these other issues, President? I think you've done enough." And that's what was pointed out. You've done enough, and that's what he's doing. I think moving forward, there's other issues that we need to fight for too. And he needs to be a little more open about it. The president needs to be a little bit more open about it, right? And be on there to talk about, because he really has about a year and a half, really.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, they say that there's not a whole lot of relevancy to a incumbent president in that last year. So you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. It's catching up. President Obama's legacy. I want you both to take about a minute or so and tell me, what is the most important thing left for him to do? What is the one thing that he could accomplish in his remaining year and a half or and some change more that could wrap up his legacy? What is the one thing that's left for him to do?
For me, it would be definitely, I would like to say, the student loan, because right now that is one of the biggest, the biggest debt this country is.
So more reform.
More reform of student loans badly. They'll tell you the truth. I would love for him to, and I tell you, we talk about how to get Democrats elected. In Germany, I believe it is that students don't have to pay to go to college.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think if he were to start, I know it's a big program, but there are ways to accomplish that. Float in a program that would allow, I mean, if we claim that the reason why our middle class is suffering is because we're not as educated as we should be, then it would seem that having some sort of a program that's, instead of being from kinder to 12, but instead from kinder to bachelor's, that would be something that you can run on, and every young person would probably take a look at a group that wants to have that type of policy.
Further reform in education.
Yes.
Lasting legacy, President Obama.
Lasting legacy.
One thing that he could do.
Well, one thing he can do is make sure in 2014 we have some good people being elected. I think he needs to take this moment and just and jet up and go out and stump everywhere else. Because right now, this Congress is not going to help him on anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right?
Right.
And so his legacy is going to be vying on November 2014. If that doesn't happen,
nothing else
happens. It's 6 months after that, there's nothing else he can do.
Yeah,
but his legacy is going to be definitely health insurance reform. And he's going to do that again. He's going to work on it in October when it starts up again. And every one of those wins is a win for him and his legacy that he's going to set in place. But again, if he can make a difference and go out there and stump for state, for the congressional individuals who are running for Congress and individuals who are running for Senate, I think he'll be fine to hopefully do something in the last 6 months or year after November.
Wow. Wow, great point. Tell me what you got going on with the Harris County Young Democrats.
So we have Kiki Friedman coming out next Wednesday. He's going to talk about what a progressive agricultural...
Wednesday, what time, where?
7 p.m. at the Harris County Democratic Party headquarters. That's at 1445 North Loop West, Houston, Texas. And we're going to basically have him come out and talk about what a progressive agricultural commissioner can do.
Tell me where I can find you on the radio.
On the radio, you can find me 90.9 FM KPFT Mondays at 9 p.m. every Monday. So you can call and talk politics with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Navid Zanjani. This is Egberto Willies. These gentlemen have been fantastic. I knew I was bringing you an all-star lineup tonight. And, when I got these gentlemen to come in, they were so gracious with their time. I mean, you got the best right here. And, of course, I'm going to have them back. There's no way I'm letting these two guys go. They're going to be back here at the table really, really soon. As always, you can send your comments to me directly at Jenard Jenkins at harrisdemocrats.com. Certainly, you're welcome to call the party, like us on Facebook, do anything, but just let us hear from you. I know you're going to be raving about these two gentlemen. I want to hear it. I want to, fill their heads and let them know that they were much appreciated for being here tonight. I want to thank you both, Navid. I want to thank you both, Egberto. These are my brothers in politics, and I'm just proud that they're here. Thank you, and have a good night, Harris County. We appreciate you joining us tonight.